Good day to you, partner. I'm Guy, and I can already tell that I'll be your best friend in this forsaken camp.
Hello, Danny.
It's the video, Keith. Hey guys, Wheat Solo here, aka the Skeleton King. So, I thought it was appropriate to keep that little soundbite on, and that was from Beko's video. Beko made this build during beta. This version of the build has had no changes from that beta. Technically, large charms were nerfed since then, and we'll get into that when we go through gearing choices and also build diversity later on. What we're showing is a Venom Assassin using Blade Dance. This has existed since Season 1 as far as I know, but it has basically only seen buffs over time, except for the slight nerf to large charms, but no. Okay? So how I'm going to do this is we're kind of going to talk about the what he's doing, and then gear choices, and then how much diversity is to this build. Okay, so as you can see, he had skills in Venom, the Synergy Cobra Strike. I mean, sorry. No, Cobra Strike, that's right. Okay. Yes. Okay, and then he uses Fist of Fury, and that's going to increase the splash radius of all of his attacks. Okay, I'm a Necromancer, guys, so give me a break. And he's going to put those stacks on, and basically you need to do that for Blade Dance to get a better splash size. Of course, he's going to get Burst of Speed for more speed, and then Claw Mastery and Claw Block because you really need the AR, and Claw Block is just OP. Now, real quickly, can you run like Cloak of Shadows instead, or could you run a shield? Yes, but we'll get back to that later. So obviously you have the Plagues on for your little snapshot. You're going to put those, cast Venom, switch to Chaos, get your Blade Dance, get your Jade Talons for just more stats and useful abilities, and then Whirlwind to your heart's content and apply Poison to everything in your path, and also do a nice chunk of physical damage. Now, one of the biggest changes this season was that Poison can now be applied by every single individual character, pet, something, and like they all have their own tick on a monster. Now, that doesn't actually affect your play speed going solo, but it is important to note that now you can play this in a map and you won't run into any sort of issues. But also it does a nice chunk of physical as well, and you can lean further into the physical side. Now, on the screen, you can see that Venom Lords are quite the conundrum for this build because they're incredibly tanky and also have a lot of poison resistance, which is something we'll talk about with build diversity and gear choices later. But let's just go through the gear he's got. He's using Skillers, and I think that's something we should talk about first, because instead of going with large charms, which will double dip, by the way, so it'll improve the venom you cast, and then when you attack the enemy, it'll do more damage as well. So even though it was nerfed to 3%, I am almost positive that the Poison Mastery large charms will do a significantly higher damage. But remember how we talked about attack rating? Unfortunately, this is a melee class, which means they actually have to think about things like attack rating, unlike just, I have plus skills on my gear. And then I put on res. Okay? So it's really difficult to actually get a nice amount of attack rating, especially on T3s, or else you miss too much and it doesn't feel good. Okay, guys? So, the interesting thing about using the passive skiller is that the passive will help increase your claw mastery, which will give you more attack rating, also some buffs to, burst of speed, and still increases the damage of Venom, I'm sure, a very nice amount. But that is something to keep in mind, that you could go a higher damage route. But if you go the higher damage route, you'll probably need to talk about AR more, which will go into build diversity and the alternate gearing options, which we'll come back to. Okay, the gear is basically perfect in the sense that, Venom grips, rings, string of ears with great corruptions, the boots, and, the plagues, the chaos, etc., the jade talons. The Maras, there are other options there, but that's basically a super solid choice for not having to deal with swapping with the right corruption. The Andariel's Visage, again, other options, but like a super solid one. The only thing that's possibly not optimal is the Black Hades. Now, the Black Hades does have bonus damage to demons, which we're going to come back to bonus damage to demons and undead in a little bit. Is Black Hades the best option? No. Is it really good? Yes. Beko actually said he felt like he'd probably do more damage and it would just be simpler to use the Gnat Chest. But besides the Gnat Chest, you have a ton of options there. Bramble, Cage of the Unsullied for typical snapshotting. So if you wanted to go further in the snapshotting, that's also an option as well. And possibly you could get enough poison damage to one cycle all of the enemies on the screen. Okay, oh, the Merc real quickly. So he's going with a more physical damage variant, so he has Mist, Tyrael's Might, and then some tanky choices like the new Vamp Gaze on the Act 1 Vigor Merc. Is Vigor necessary? No. Is Vigor basically your only choice softcore playing a Whirlwind class? Because, Assassins are a Whirlwind class? Yes. So now let's talk about diversity, because we can kind of segue into there. Because technically you don't even have to run Burst of Speed. As I mentioned, you could run Cloak of Shadows. Right there, he reapplied his Fist of Fury thing, where if you get the 3 little circling white orbs, your splash radius is increased. Okay, so Calic, shout out to you, and also Lawlsuit as well. Thank you as well. Also, because of you shooting out Calic, I knew who to go watch, and you helped as well. What is interesting about this build is you can probably not rely solely on poison damage. Now, if you wanted to go very deep into snapshotting or only run T1s, I think it probably is possible to almost solely rely on poison damage. But that would require a much different gearing choice than the ones we see on the screen now. But what is cool is you don't have to do that. You can have things like your Venom Grip has Crushing Blow, etc., even some open wounds, possibly an Atmoscara, which has some open wounds and amplified damage procs on it. And like I said, the Merc is actually using a Mist and a Tyrael's Might for more physical damage. Now there's Mana Leech, there's Life Leech, etc., and that all helps as well with more physical damage. But you don't even have that's not even the end of the options you have with gear. What you can actually do is run things like Laying of Hands, Ghoul Hide, etc., because you get damage to demons or damage to undead, which is interesting because Black Hades gives damage to demons, which really, really fucking helps for those chunky Venom Lords. So what's interesting is you can make this build very specific to any map you're running by having a few different gearing options around to make that map easier. Now, what map do I think is the best for this build? I actually think the best, probably for his gearing choice, might be in this one right here, based on the gear choices he made, like Black Hades. But I'm going to put a little list up showing other alternative maps as well. Anyways, Skellicking out, Gigi.
Come play with us, Daddy. Forever